How many times have you tried in vain to achieve happiness? And how many times have you wondered why it is so elusive and difficult to obtain? Have you explored sacred texts and ancient books, followed paths of inner growth and followed training courses, experimented with a variety of approaches and methodologies, but that persistent sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction doesn't seem to want to leave you alone? Thanks to the Zen narration that you are preparing to listen to with interest and attention, you will come to know how the constant and incessant search for happiness ends up imprisoning us in a vortex of anxiety and insecurity, rather than giving us the much-needed and deserved tranquility. You will follow the itinerary of Aki, a 60-year-old woman who finally, after a long journey full of challenges and obstacles, has found the inner peace she longed for and desired. Therefore, I invite you to stay with us until the end, as you will discover that the key to happiness may not be what you always imagined and dreamed of. But before continuing, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications to stay updated when we publish new content for your spiritual growth. As the midday sun filtered through the stained glass windows of the Buddhist Shoji temple, creating a kaleidoscope of lights on the stone floor, Aki, kneeling on a worn pillow, concentrated on her breathing. What she was trying to do was calm her restless mind that wasn't allowing her to live well. His lips, thin and pursed, murmured a mantra that was lost in the echo of the temple. At a certain point, a deep sigh broke the silence. His eyelids slowly fluttered open, revealing hazel eyes clouded with sadness. Why can't I find the peace I want? He asked himself bitterly. What stops me from living with serenity and joy? Aki had been searching for happiness for a long time. She had read sacred books, consulted renowned masters, followed paths of inner growth, but the feeling of emptiness and dissatisfaction did not abandon her. It was as if she was haunted by a black cloud that made her days dark and sad, preventing her from finding the emotional balance and mental well-being she yearned for. Aki's restlessness was fueled by a feeling of inadequacy. She was confronted with glossy images of perfect lives on social media, with the success stories of friends and acquaintances, and she felt increasingly lost and alone. What is wrong with me? He tormented himself. Why can't I be happy like them? The only respite from his torments was in the Zen temple. The silence of the place, the scent of incense, and the singing of the monks gave her a sense of peace and quiet. It was as if, within those sacred walls, he could finally silence the deafening noise of his mind and listen to the silent voice of his heart. That day, as he prepared to leave the temple, Aki caught the eye of Master Zen, a Buddhist monk known for his wisdom and compassionate smile. There was a light in his eyes that intrigued and attracted her. Perhaps in that man, he could find the answer to his questions and the key to the happiness he so desired. So at the end of the meditation, Aki stopped to listen to the lesson that Master Zen was about to begin. Today, I will talk to you about a pitfall that ruins the lives of many of you. The incessant search for happiness, began the monk. A murmur of surprise ran through the group of disciples present at the lesson. Master, Aki exclaimed fervently, isn't happiness what we all desire? Isn't it the ultimate goal of our existence? Master Zen smiled sweetly. Happiness, dear Aki, is like a butterfly. If we chase it too hard, it will always escape our embrace. It is in the quiet of non-desire that it lands delicately on our hand. Zen explained that the frantic search for happiness often leads us down false paths, making us fall into traps that deprive us of true freedom. Modern society, said the master in a calm tone, wants us to be slaves to an ephemeral and materialistic happiness that distances us from our true essence. We are bombarded with messages that make us want expensive material possessions, toxic relationships based on appearance, and unbridled ambitions that take us away from ourselves and true happiness. This modern slavery, continued the master, leads us to seek happiness in the wrong ways. How can we believe that happiness can be achieved through the accumulation of material goods? And how can we think that the cult of the image and the obsession with appearance and the approval of others can give us the peace we seek. And again, are you convinced that the search for ephemeral success and the unbridled race towards goals that do not bring us true joy is the right way to find happiness? Master Zen, with delicacy and compassion, after asking these questions to those who listened to him with great interest, guided his disciples to discover the secrets to living happily, providing concrete examples. Dear disciples, learn to cultivate gratitude for the simple gifts that life reserves for us, such as a hot meal, a safe roof, a sincere smile. It may seem trivial, but only by realizing the importance of these things can we attract others and know happiness. Aki, following these suggestions, decided to start keeping a gratitude diary, where every day she wrote down 3 things she was grateful for. And over time, she realized that even the smallest things, like the singing of birds or the smell of warm bread, could bring her joy. Living simply, freeing ourselves from superfluous material things and focusing on what is truly important, such as deep relationships, nature, and inner growth, is another thing you should focus on, Master said confidently. And Aki, grateful for these words, decided to sell some valuable items that she no longer used and donated the proceeds to charity. Thus, she began to feel freer and lighter, with fewer things to worry about. Another suggestion from the elderly monk was to nourish one's soul through meditation, prayer, reading inspirational texts, and contemplating the beauty of creation. Aki, after hearing these words, began to meditate every day for 30 minutes. It was difficult at first, but over time his mind calmed and his heart opened to an inner peace he had never experienced before. Developing compassion towards ourselves and towards others, learning to accept suffering as part of life and giving yourself to others is another thing that can help you encounter happiness, continued the monk. The disciples looked into each other's eyes and began to reflect on ways in which they could implement their mentor's wise teachings. Master Zen's words resonated in Aki's soul like a soothing balm. The woman finally understood that the frantic search for happiness was the chain that kept her from true joy. And from that day, he decided to put the Master's teachings into practice, freeing himself from the chains of modern slavery and starting a path of true inner growth. The first thing he decided to do was dedicate himself to his transformation journey. In the secret garden of his home, immersed in the scent of flowers and the singing of birds, he created a small altar with a meditation cushion, an image of Buddha, and a bowl of incense. Every morning before going to work, he sat quietly and focused on his breathing, letting his mind calm and his heart open to inner peace. Those few minutes, multiplied over the days and weeks, were enough to make her feel better. Another thing Aki began to do was cultivate gratitude for every little gift in life. In the morning, she woke up with a smile on her face, giving thanks for the new day that had been given to her. She observed the beauty of the sky, the sun rising on the horizon, the flowers blooming in the garden, and felt a sense of deep gratitude for the wonder she was surrounded by. Over time, the woman freed herself from the superfluous material things that cluttered her home and her mind. He sold expensive items that he no longer used and donated the proceeds to charity. She surrounded herself only with simple and beautiful things that gave her joy and nourished her soul. He understood that it was more important to have useful and pleasant objects rather than luxurious objects just for the sake of having them. Aki also began walking in the woods, sitting by the lake, listening to the birds singing, and this made her feel in harmony with the universe. Nature taught her to live simply, to flow with the rhythm of life, and to accept the natural cycle of things. Learning to practice compassion towards herself and others was another step towards inner peace. The woman began to accept her mistakes and weaknesses with kindness, and learn to forgive herself and others. Opening up to the pain of the world with a compassionate heart, offering her help to those in need, helped her feel useful and find a place in society. Gradually, Aki learned to release dominance and trust the flow of life. He began to embrace the ambiguity of tomorrow with confidence and calm. It could represent an opportunity for evolution and the acquisition of knowledge. One morning, immersed in contemplation in his green refuge, a butterfly with lively wings landed lightly on his hand. Aki looked at it in wonder, admiring its subtle and delicate beauty. In that moment, full of enchantment and emotion, he understood that happiness was not a goal to be achieved, but a path to be followed with awareness and gratitude. Aki had finally understood that happiness is not a goal to be achieved, but rather a path to be followed with awareness and gratitude. He understood that the obsession with achieving happiness can prove counterproductive.